I think for American audiences too, that there's something appealing about the Britishness of Monty Python, and from the audience perspective, being the sort of person who can appreciate that absurdist humor, that silly humor, the topical references that are being included, is rewarding. So I think people who get into Monty Python, part of what attracts them to it, particularly for an American audience, is the fact that there's something distinctly British about
Yeah.
Monty Python, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I know, and Ross and I've talked about this before in our anime episodes. Um, but what like really always brought me into like Godzilla and Pokemon, some of those things that were becoming really popular, Sailor Moon and stuff in the 90s that made me a huge Japanophile, made me a real fan. And I started, I ended up studying the language and the culture and the politics, everything of Japan. Is it was so uniquely Japanese, and especially in the 90s, like Matt Alt in our anime episode said, they weren't filing the serial numbers off anymore of some of the Japanese things coming out in the States. It was, this is a Japanese product. We're not going to try to localize it as much as we did maybe in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Same thing with the British comedies of not just Monty Python, but Fawlty Towers, Are You Being Served? It is so uniquely British and so distant from American humor, what's going on in American humor, both at the time that I was seeing it in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s, or when it was coming out in the 60s, 70s, 80s. That's what gravitated to me. Just like I ate up the stuff that was uniquely Japanese because it was so different from American things. Same thing with the British comedy. I ate it up because it was so different and uniquely different and almost offensively British, It was, almost too British sometimes. But I like that.
And Monty Python comes out of a tradition of British nonsense humor that goes back maybe to Lewis Carroll and the Alice in Wonderland, through the Looking Glass, and you've got Norton Jester of the Phantom Toll Booth, and then
Mm.
following in the wake of Monty Python, someone like Douglas Adams in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. That we think of British humor sometimes as being sort of very buttoned up and reserved, but there is also simultaneously this tradition of nonsense humor, and the Pythons are inheritors of that.
You just heard a clip from the most recent episode of the History on Film podcast. For more of this episode and access to all our episodes, search for the History on Film podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Pandora. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel here on YouTube. You can also check out our Discord server, follow us on Blue Sky and Instagram, and please consider supporting us on Patreon. Links in the description. Thanks for listening.